If we could call the roll, please, clerk.
Members, if you can please make your selections on the tablet, please. Chair, we have 6 members present, 10 members absent. We do not have a quorum at this moment.
Okay, so we won't be able to approve the minutes. We'll hold that until our next meeting. And let's hear non-agenda public comment, and then we'll make our way through the agenda the best we can.
We have no public comments at the moment, Chair.
Okay. That brings us to the item that we really did need to get through today, which is item 4, our public hearing on maximum rates of fare. Lenny, I will pass it to you now.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Leonardo Fiwell. I'm the For-Hire Vehicle Administration Manager, and I will be presenting today's agenda. Agenda item number 4, which are the 2026 maximum rates of fare. In accordance with the MTS board policy number 34, we calculate the maximum rates of fare based on the annual change in the consumer price index, which is currently the sole calculation method to determine the rates for both the city and the airport originated trips. Important to note that taxi cabs that are equipped as part of, as noted in the policy number 34, those taxi cabs that are equipped with an electronic point of sale, which is a point of sale that's typically placed on the headrest of the seat that allows the passenger to pay with a credit card. Those taxi cabs with that type of equipment may charge an extra 6% on top of the maximum rates of fare. And the intent of that is to incentivize the industry to adopt these technologies. It is very important to note that these 2026 maximum rates of fare do not apply to electronically booked trips in accordance with the For-Hire Vehicle Administration requirements. And this has to do mainly with the TNC Uber trips that are sent to a taxi cab through their computerized dispatch that might be higher or lower than the maximum rates. For this year, there was a significant increase in the change of the 2025 consumer price index in comparison to 2024. And as a result, there was an increase to the flag drop, the per mile, and waiting time rates. This is a comparison of the, I would say, current, as of today, or as of yesterday, the 2025 rates of fare that were in effect for last year, and the new 2026 maximum rates of fare. That is a significant change, as you can see, from the flag drops in the mile rates and the per hour waiting. And we also have that comparison on the far right of what they would look if the taxi cab is equipped with a point of sale device. Very important, I will emphasize this throughout the slide. These rates, adoption of the 2026 rates of fare, they're optional. They're not obligated. We need to dispel any rumors or any impressions that taxi cabs need to adopt these rates. They're completely optional. Permit holders can choose to charge any rate that are less than these 2026 maximum rates of fare. That being said, the permit holders may, at their sole discretion, continue to utilize the 2025 rates of fare, which are lower than the ones that we are presenting today for 2026, so long as they are equal or less, again, than the 2026 rates of fare that we are presenting today. If that's the case, then no additional steps are needed to be done with for-hire vehicle administration. Now, we do have taxi cabs that are equipped with traditional hard meters and taxi cabs that have adopted soft meter technology. And for them, the change in the rates is a little bit different. We're going to point out the main differences here. So for taxi cabs that are equipped with traditional hard meters, any change to the taximeter rates must be performed manually by an authorized taximeter service agent who may charge for their service. And it is the responsibility of the taxicab permit holders to locate those authorized service agents. They're all over the state. However, here in San Diego County, I believe that there's 4 of those service agents that might provide these services. Now, for taxi cabs that are equipped with soft meters, the process is easier. The dispatch service provider may make the rate adjustments remotely through the soft meter software programming. We encourage those permit holders who utilize soft meters to contact their dispatch service so they can change the rates if they choose. They don't have to, but this process, in the event that they choose, it could be done remotely and quickly through technology, through soft meter technology. Permit holders must continue to complete the taximeter registration and certification process with the San Diego Department of Weights and Measures, like as required by law and as they have done if they have been legacy permit holders, the dealings with the registration with Weights and Measures. I believe Weights and Measures does send them an email whenever their registration is about to expire. In that case, no additional steps are needed with for-hire vehicle administration if changing those meter rates. Our inspectors will conduct random taximeter inspections in the field in those taxi cabs that utilize higher rates than the authorized 2026 rates of fare will be taken out of service until the taximeter is adjusted with an additional $75 re-inspection. So very important that taxi permit holders are sure to comply with the requirements of the San Diego County Weights and Measures if they decide to change their rates. Also, to get in contact with Weights and Measures, that way they can reschedule their own inspection process. And on this item, Chair, that concludes this item, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Let's see if there's any public comment on this item.
We do have one public comment. Akbar Majid, if you could please unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. As Lenny mentioned, this is not mandatory. If you choose not to increase your rates, you don't have to. But historically, we know that the minute this is passed, everybody runs to a meter man and increases their rates. I've said this time and again when I was sitting on that committee that there is such thing as pricing yourself out of the market. And as we sit here today with the current rates, we have priced ourselves out of the market. And by increasing it, will make matters even worse. It's getting to a point where if you're taking a taxi cab from the airport to any destination in the northern part of San Diego, your taxi fare is more expensive than your airfare. So it's becoming at a point that it's absolutely ridiculous. And to me, it really doesn't matter if they want to increase their rates, but the general perception, they're changing this for the general public, the perception that every taxi cab is gouging the public, and as a result, they're affecting the legitimate companies that are trying to transport people, residents and tourists and conventioneers at a reasonable price. So I urge the industry not to rush and go out there and raise your rates again, because you are currently, as we sit here today, you've priced yourself out of the market. And if you increase it even further, those wait times at the airport, it'll be much longer than what it is today. I can see that my time is almost up. I thank you for the opportunity.
That concludes public comments, Chair.
All right, then we will open it up for committee questions and committee member questions and comments. We'll begin with Mr. Seifu and then hear from Mr. Zichi.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I have two questions to ask. The first one is we've been discussing about this issue for the last 2 years regarding the flat rate since May 2024. I just want to check the status of that case. That's my first question. The second one is about this rate. This rate is going to drive our customers away. I know you say it's an optional, but we have some people who want to take the advantage. And that's going to drive more customers away from the airport. And we've been asking the airport even to have their own rates, specific rates, and we're still looking for that solution. And we want to know why we're not working on this case, instead of just keep increasing the rate every year or every 2 years, why we don't see what's the real problem and come up with a solution. You propose something and it's going to help. Let's help the industry. Sometimes I feel like we're coming to this meeting for nothing, So I just want to see what's your intake on this issue. Thank you.
Lenny, if you'd like to respond. Yeah.
Very well.
If you'd like to.
Mr. Seifu, thank you for the question. So in this case, as you could see, and as I was telling our chair before the meeting, this has been one of the highest rate hikes that I've remembered based on inflation, right? The consumer price index. So that changes the game a little bit in terms of what the intention of the flat rate would be. And I do want to bring up this for the committee, because the intent of the flat rate is to compensate for the lack of trips in the airport. And for the short trips, then that would mean that that flat rate would be higher than what the rate would be just based on these maximum rates. So I don't believe that that's the direction that the committee or the industry would like to go, even adopting a rate that's going to be higher of the already highest rates that we've recorded. That's point number one. And point number two, Mr. Seifu, we are exploring possibilities. We do know that if we were to continue, and we communicated with the airport, if we are to continue exploring the possibility of adopting a flat rate from out of the airport, we want to explore every technology option to ensure consumer protections, number one, and to ensure that it is properly implemented. So that being said, and I'll report this in another item, adoption of soft meter technology is key for both the airport and for Higher Vehicle Administration to continue exploring the feasibility of adopting a flat rate. Why? Because the technology will bring consumer protections in terms of allowing our inspectors to investigate complaints, to adopt that soft meter being that rate through geofencing or other technologies that are based on distance or locations. So that's still on the table. However, I do believe that it is very important for the industry to keep in mind these rates. And what is the direction, as Mr. Majid mentioned in his public comment, to remain sustainable in terms of not marketing ourselves or the industry pricing ourselves out in comparison to other options. So those two things are key, that we will not, for Higher Vehicle Administration, will not adopt and would not recommend a fee that is higher than this, because it would price out the taxi cabs out of the market even further, and that's something that we don't want. But if there are options with more and more taxi cabs adopting that technology, we will explore. I will present an item at our next May Taxi Cab Advisory Committee on those developments, and then we can reassess. But technology is key, and an awareness of market share is also key for members and for the industry overall.
Thank you, Lenny.
Sure.
Peter?
Yes, I want to thank Akbar for public comment. And I said this at the last meeting or the meeting before that actually, if you look at it, the advantage of using the CPI index is it's objective. It's a thing that's out there. You know what it is. You can do your math. The problem is the logic of using the CPI index is that you're automatically guaranteeing that you're going to price yourself out of a market because the CPI is always going to go up, which has nothing to do with the market for taxis or rideshare or anything. So there's no logical connection between the CPI and what we're trying to do in the taxi industry. So it's a tool, and it's an easy tool, but it does not serve our industry anymore. It may have served it at one time, but it doesn't serve the industry because the logic of the CPI doesn't fit the logic of our marketplace. And so I really, I don't have an answer, but I would like to have a special ad hoc meeting called by Lenny and anybody who's interested to come to a meeting and brainstorm on what would be the alternatives to a CPI index, using the CPI index for one, and two is to understand more about the difference between what we'd have to do at the airport. I think it's time to I mean, we're already too high, but if we could come up with some other way, I think this could be the year to do it because this is going to call the question. Now, if you were in the industry 15 or 20 years ago, and Akbar can, if Yellow Cab did something, it sort of permeated the industry because they were a big player. But the industry, as Ava was pointing, the industry is very decentralized now. We have just hundreds and hundreds of drivers that may own 5 cars, 3 cars, 2 cars, 1 car. We don't have the kind of, even the structure inside our industry to have that kind of discussion or that kind of influence. And that's been a big change also. So I think I would propose that we have an ad hoc meeting where we can speak frankly, explore ideas, and see what our options could be to preserve the taxi market through some other, and the pricing mechanism through something else than the CPI.
Thank you, Peter. Lenny, do you think that that's something we can try to do? Have a conversation like that?
Certainly, Chair. Yes, Peter, I look forward to that. I can tell you that we do consult with other agencies, with other peer regulatory agencies throughout the United States, and I can say that they are adopting, as you mentioned, this is a very subjective method, the CPI. They have other methods to calculate the rates. Some of them are dictated directly by the agency themselves. In some other places, like in the state of Washington, they are developed with agreement with the industry, right? So there are other methods, and certainly, we can look at what other cities are doing and brainstorm maybe other possibilities. I would end with that, just to clarify that the CPI index is a very complex tool, but it's not the general CPI. It's a consumer price index that focuses on transportation, taking into account the price of gas, the price of vehicle repairs, tires, and so forth. And even more so, it's focused to the San Diego-Carlsbad area. So we get those statistics from the U.S. Department of Labor, and they are as close as we can get. But again, you're right, their inflation is the overall factor when it comes to that. But just want to make that clear to the committee that that's the narrowest report that we can get, and that's the one that we've been utilizing. But I look forward to that, and we will look to see if we can convene for an ad hoc committee for that purpose.
Yeah. One more comment, and just to observe, you have 500 or 600 small business people, and we have an agency that's authorized to tell them what their maximum rate is. If you were grocers, I'm just looking at other small businesses around the county, and grocers compete within a certain. There's a lot of small businesses that choose how they want to operate in the marketplace, and we don't get that choice. And so I would say that having a CPI that's around San Diego is really asking for it, because there's other industries in San Diego that generate that rate, and it's not the taxi industry. And so we're subjecting ourselves to a part of the business community that's not our business community, that's not a small business community. So we really are, that even points out even more how inappropriate I think it is, and takes away the biggest item that the small business people, taxi drivers have, is having some control over their pricing and how they enter the marketplace. So I really think it's, I think the more we can understand the complexity of the CPI, I think the more we can come to grips with what are our options. And thank you for the input, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Peter. Horacio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Lenny, for you and your team trying to get a fair rate for the taxi drivers. Staying on topic with the airport, I know that this is a optional rate increase. Unfortunately, working the airport, there's not really a way to advertise if certain companies or certain taxi are operating with a lower rate. So we're subject to have to use the highest rate at the airport, because there's not really an ability for the taxi company to say, hey, we have a lower rate, and then you have jumping, and that causes a mess. So to Abel's point, having a standard rate at the airport that everyone adheres to almost levels the playing field. And we're not asking that it has to be at the maximum rate. It could be something that's lower, that there's a consensus that everybody agrees upon, to be able to promote that at the airport. We don't have the ability to promote our personal rates at the airport currently. So we're kind of battling each other to try to provide that service. And you can go to one taxi cab, they'll say $435, and then another cab can be charged $380. But at the same time, we're pricing ourselves out if we're all playing at the higher levels. So if there's anything from the airport side where we can communicate and have a standard coming out of the airport, or a standard airport rate, that would really help out, level it out, and make it a uniform experience for the passengers trying to get serviced home.
Thank you, Horacio. Michael, did you want to respond to that?
Hello. Lenny, thanks for reaching out to us on, setting the rates, and we thank you for involving us in that process. I think the variable pricing is just what everyone's doing nowadays. Hotels, TNCs, airlines, and the technology part. I think it's important that you guys continue to work moving there. As we come across these things where, how do we deal with variable pricing, we can work with you. So if we need to change signage or work through that, we're able to do that, and want to, as these things come about, on how you want to market the taxi product at the airport, at what price, how you want to do that. We can work with you on help on that.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for the kind words. And I look forward to reaching out to you and your team and see how we can convene this ad hoc meeting and come up with a way to have uniform fares in the airport.
Thank you, Lenny. I appreciate that. If that is something that, just intuitively as a user, that is the one thing that I think could actually make a real difference, because you can see the line, so you're measuring a couple of things. How much is it going to cost me, and how long is it going to take, right? And if you can see the line, and that, okay, I know I can get a cab, but I don't know what the cab's going to cost, right? You're looking at an app that's going to tell you how much it's going to cost and how long you're going to wait. You can actually really compare those things. Taxis almost always are quicker from the airport, but the cost is a huge unknown. And so, anything that provides some certainty, I think, on the customer end, and does that in a way that's demonstrable, that would seem like a important step forward for taxi drivers at the airport. I appreciate everyone being willing to work on it. Lenny, thank you for the presentation. That brings us to our next item. We will go to item 5. Lenny, if you'd like to introduce that item, and if Marie, feel free to start as soon as you've had a chance to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Board Chair and Board members for having me. My name is Marie Cole. I work for the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority. I am a contract specialist for the Landside Business Development Department, and I'm here to present the Ground Transportation Access Fee Plan. This plan was presented to our executive leadership team in 24. We presented the plan to them in regards to all of the access fees that our commercial modes are charged to access the airport. The fee was also presented to the commercial mode industry that service at SAN in the year of 24. And then from there, in 25, the plan was presented to the board and they approved the 3-year plan in June of 2025. So we are in phase 1 of the plan, which is our fiscal year of 2026, which we are currently on right now. Wrong way. So I will be discussing the objectives of the plan, the current users, the approved rate changes, the implementation schedule, and the summary of rates. So our objectives as followed for the plan. We wanted this plan to enhance consistency and equity across transportation modes, meaning to ensure a fair and uniform treatment of all transportation modes, to promote a balanced usage and equitable access to the airport. And then we also wanted to simplify the processes for operators and reduce administrative costs, meaning to streamline the fee collection and management procedures to improve operator experience. And then we also wanted to make sure that the fees that we were presented align with the current market rates. So to adjust fees to be competitive with prevailing market standards, ensuring that they are up to date and reflect the true value of the service that's being provided at the airport. And then we also wanted to make sure we continue to promote sustainable transportation options, meaning to encourage all of our operators to use alternative fuel vehicles. So the ground transportation users and fees. So here are our current users that service the airport. We can see the list here. We have our charter taxis, our TNCs, our courtesy shuttles, our off-airport parking shuttles, our off-airport rental car shuttles, and our vehicle for hire. And the areas of the airport where these operators service are the drop-offs occur at the departure roadway, the terminal curb, and at the ground transportation island. And then our pickups occur at the ground transportation island. And then all modes have transponders to capture the activity at their activity at the airport, except for TNCs and charters. And then the transponders are configured to capture transactions at the transportation island. Our geofence technology is used to capture TNC activity. So here's our current fee structure. As you can see here, that per trip fee, pickups are only at the transportation island, and the modes that fall into that category are our taxis, our courtesy shuttles, our off-airport parking shuttles, and vehicle for hire. And then, as you know, our TNCs are on a per trip fee-based structure, so they have pickup and drop off. And then we have an annual per vehicle fee, and that is with our charter and our off-airport rental car shuttles. Along with our other fees, we have an application fee, a transponder installation fee, and an added vehicle fee. So as I mentioned before, this plan was presented to the board back in June of 25, and they approved. And so we're moving towards the second phase of this plan, which is our fiscal year 2027, which will start July 1 of this year. And so what that means, our fee structure will change, meaning that all modes of transportation will transition to a pickup and drop-off fee. So that includes all of the modes listed on the slide. And so we want to make sure that we keep with the AFB rate differentiation. So we want to make sure that the pickup and the drop-off fee are still based on the base rate, the lower rate for the alternative fuel vehicles, and then a higher rate for our non-AFB vehicles. And the approved access fee changes. So here's an overview of the approved changes. We will be implementing a per trip fee structure, transition all transportation modes to a per trip fee system for both pickup and drop-off services. We will be expanding the coverage areas at the rental car center and at the Terminal 2 EDR, which is the elevated departure roadway. And then we have scheduled incremental rate increases starting with the current year that we're on, FY26, that will go through to fiscal year 28. And the benefits of this per trip fee structure, we want to combine the existing 3 rate structures into a single uniform rate structure. And the single rate structure simplifies understanding of the requirements and reduces administrative processes. And then we also reached out to other peer airports. We wanted to see if they have already utilized a per trip fee for commercial mode operations and are starting to charge for both pickups and drop-offs. And then still providing opportunities to introduce differentiated rates for AFB charter operations. So this is what the fees will look like and what the fee structure for FY27 that will start July 1 of this year. All of the modes are in that service the airport will be involved in it. So you can see here that our taxi, courtesy, off airport parking, and vehicle for hire still have the different rates that will apply. The base rate, the AFB rate, and the non-AFB rate, and then our TNC and charters will be charged a flat $5 rate. And we will, as I mentioned, we're expanding the coverage areas at the rent-a-car center and at the Terminal 2 EDR. For all modes to are based on that fee structure, and charges for drop-offs and pickups at the rental car center and at the EDR. And then we will be utilizing the existing AVI infrastructure at the loading and unloading areas as well. So this will cause for an incremental rate increase. So it'll approximately be about 5%. And that will that will touch on our pickup fees, our drop-off fees, our application fees, our add a vehicle fee, and a single day operating pass. And so the benefit of those incremental increases will be a consistent percentage rate increase for all of our transportation modes. A consistent increase simplifies the messaging to stakeholders and reduces administrative confusion. And then we want to make sure that we align the fee increases with the market and inflation. And then the percentage of increase proportionately increases rates for non-AFB to continue to provide a distinct rate differentiation. So in summary, here's the implementation schedule summary. So we're currently on our FY26 fiscal year. So we've had our first rate increase. We have an increased scope of liquidated damages. We are in the process of trying to implement an automatic prepaid billing system, and then also offer a single day operating pass. For the next fiscal year, 27, which will start in July 1 of this year, we are going to change the fee structure for our charter operators and off-airport rental car shuttles. They will no longer have an annual per vehicle fee. We will be implementing a drop-off fee for all of our modes. We will do the 5% rate increase for all modes, and then we will be expanding the coverage at the RCC and Terminal 2 EDR. And then the last fiscal year will be just the 5% increase on all of our rates. So here's the summary of the rates currently for FY '26. This is for our annual fees, which include our charter and off-airport rental car shuttles. Their rates are as followed. Charters pay a $225 per annual vehicle fee, and then the rates at the bottom for our rental car shuttles based on AFE, non-AFE, and the base rate. And you can see here with our pickup fees, TNCs have that $450 rate, and then you can see what our taxis and vehicle for hire and courtesy and off-airport parking, their rates are currently now, and then for FY '27 and '28, you can see what the rates will be increased to. And the same for our drop-off fees. So TNCs currently are the only mode that have pickup and drop-off. For FY '27, that's where the fee structure will change and everyone will transition to a pickup and drop-off, and those fees are listed. And then our additional fees will also have an increase for '27. We have our application fee, our add a vehicle fee, our transponder installation fee will stay the same. And then our single day operating pass will start at $50. And then we have a liquidated damage for $100 per offense. So as I mentioned in the beginning, that we did reach out to other airports to get an idea of what they are charging their commercial modes to service their airports. So I do have a list of all of what the airports that we reached out to and what their fees are. So for courtesy vehicles, we reached out to LAX, SFO, John Wayne, and San Jose. These are the rates that they are charging for courtesy vehicles. For taxis and TNCs at the same airports. And then our charter and vehicle for hire. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for having me. And does anyone have any questions?
Thank you so much. We'll first see if there's any public comment on this.
Chair, I know Lenny has an additional presentation to this. Would you like to take public comments now or after?
No, afterward. Thank you for reminding me.
Of course.
Sorry, Lenny.
Thank you, Marie, for your presentation. Chair, I will continue with this item with the second part of the presentation, which are the steps that are needed to implement the airport ground transportation fees that Marie presented earlier. So first and foremost, in order to implement these fees, any taxi cabs that pick up or drop off passengers at the airport must have or apply must apply for an airport ground transportation permit. For that, we provide the applicants and current permit holders with the general GT permits email. That way they can reach out directly to the airport for further instructions. Again, as I mentioned, the technology difference between soft meters and hard meters, there are different steps depending on what type of meters the taxi cabs would have. If taxi cabs are equipped with a hard meter, they must make an appointment with an authorized service agent to adjust the new pickup fee and program the new drop-off fee to the hard meter. Both pickup and drop-off fees are added to the taximeter at the conclusion of the trip. So this is a technical specification that the authorized service agent will be able to program on the soft meter. What this means is that this particular fee will not be reflected at the beginning of the trip. It would only be added once that trip has concluded. Then they would be able to add either the pickup fee or the drop-off fee. If a taxi cab is equipped with a soft meter, the adjustments are easier, similar to the maximum rates of fare or any rate change, because it can be done remotely and instantly through the soft meter software programming that's utilized by the dispatch service. So again, we encourage permit holders to contact their dispatch services on how this would be accomplished. But it could be done remotely, and it could be done fairly quicker than if utilizing a heart meter. Excuse me. Once the new pickup and drop-up rates have been programmed into the taximeter for both hard and soft meters, then for hire vehicle regulatory inspectors will be on site at the airport holding lot to verify the new pickup and drop-off rate amounts. We will also verify that both rates can only be added to the final fare at the conclusion of the trip. And we would also affix notice to passenger stickers inside the rear and front parts of the taxi cabs, informing the passengers of the rate for consumer transparency. That way, when the passenger sees that extra fees are being added to the taximeter, the driver can always point to these decals. And based on the airport's presentation, this would be an ongoing process as those rate changes increment with the incremental changes for every year. To facilitate those inspections, our inspectors will be on site at the taxicab holding lot between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. on the following dates. As you can see, for a little bit over a year, immediately starting the fiscal year. So the first day we will be there is Wednesday, July 1st, Thursday the 2nd, and then in celebration of 4th of July, then we're skipping that Friday, but then we are resuming inspections on Monday, July 6th, all the way through that week, ending on July 10th. This is the process that we have historically done whenever the airport changes their pickup fees and now implementing their drop-off fees. And it has proven to be an efficient and convenient way for drivers to comply with this requirement, as our inspectors are already in the airport making sure that these rates are accurate. It's a fairly and quick process. It's free of charge. And afterwards, we will provide the airport with a list of the taxi cabs that have completed those inspections by the July 10th deadline. And then the airport, at their discretion, may suspend those taxi cabs that fail to complete those inspections by the deadline of July 10th, 2026. It is important to note that airports generally serve as the #1 destination for taxi cab trips in most major cities worldwide. Out of the 895 currently permitted taxi cabs, 507, or approximately 57% of the entire permitted fleet, also have an airport ground transportation permit. It would be detrimental to the taxi cab industry if some taxi cabs did not provide passenger service to the San Diego airport. For hire vehicle administration does not require taxi cabs to obtain an airport ground transportation permit. What that means is that for any new applicant that desires to come into the taxi cab business can do so by meeting our application criteria, and that it is up to them to follow up with the San Diego airport if they want to conduct business in the airport. But it is not required to have, but those applicants or for hire vehicle administration does not require them to have an airport ground transportation permit. On the other hand, the airport does require for those taxi cabs that want to conduct business on their premises, they do require them to have a for hire vehicle administration permit. Important to note that some permit holders may choose not to provide pickup trips at the San Diego airport, but are currently required by ordinance number 11 to not refuse service based on trip destination. And that's explicitly required by ordinance 11. They cannot refuse based on hence trip destination, wherever that might be, the airport or any other geographical area within the county. And that being said, for hire vehicle administration, we'll explore possible measures to facilitate the new airport drop-off fee requirement, while also aiming to minimize impacts to future passengers in the taxi cab industry. Some of these future measures could include exploring what rules or what steps have other cities or airports with similar drop-off requirements have implemented. Possible mandatory taxi cab markings, advising passengers of the ability for the taxi cab to provide trips ending at the airport. This is common in larger metropolitan areas with multiple airports, such as New York or Washington, D.C., where there is more than one airport where taxi cabs may operate. We could also have discussions on the role dispatch services may have on requiring their subscribers to provide service to the airport. This could be a practical tool to assist the industry. And also possibly convening a future ad hoc meeting to discuss other possible measures or recommendations on how to facilitate this new drop-off fee. That concludes my presentation, Chair. I'm open for questions or comments.
All right, thank you so much. Now we'll now see if there's any public comment.
Yes, we do. Tony Westhope, you can please unmute yourself. Tony, can you hear us? Are you able to unmute yourself? Looks like he is no longer online, Chair, so that would conclude public comments.
All right, we'll open it up to committee members, beginning with Mr. Zici.
Yeah, I just observed that the requirement by ordinance 11 was done at a time when the airport didn't charge for dropping off someone at the airport. So it seems to me to mandate that a taxi driver has to perform that service and incur a charge from the airport, or it's and certainly is not fair. I mean, it's a new day, and so it seems to me that one of the options here would be to modify Ordinance 11 requirement because we're forcing someone to incur penalties or financial stuff that they are not choosing to be part of their business. So I think that's one of the options for dealing with this situation.
Lenny, did you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Peter. No, you're absolutely right. And that's something that we identified early. And that is why, as I mentioned, we will look into possible measures to avoid any penalties against any driver that chooses not to or is not able to provide service to the airport. And there are options there, right? We are still in time before to explore what possibilities are there for us to adopt either through the ordinance or any other administrative regulation and work with the airport. But most importantly, see what other cities are doing. And that way we can make sure that no drivers are penalized for not being able to service the airport. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Lenny. Appreciate the presentation here. I think this is going to be a pretty big conversation in the city, just in the region, to be totally honest. It goes well beyond folks who are in the taxi industry. I'm sure you all are anticipating as much. But I think especially given where we are with cost of living and concerns around those increased costs, I am very curious to see what public response to this looks like. From the city perspective, we can tell you that anytime there are new charges, no matter how common they are elsewhere, the response from the public has been pretty consistently oppositional, and those frustrations are growing. So, yeah, we'll just have to see what comes of that. But I appreciate the presentation. Thank you for being here. All right, Lenny, our next item is our regulatory fee update. Do you want to provide that presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. Item on the regulatory fee payment update. Item number 6, beginning with reminding the committee that for hire vehicle administration revenue is based on the projection of regulatory and other administrative processing fees. Per the California Public Utilities Code, all of for hire vehicle administration fees activities must generate full cost recovery through the administrative fee schedule. And in accordance to the 2026 administrative fee schedule, the annual regulatory fees were approved back November as follows. For taxicabs, jitneys, low-speed vehicles, and sightseeing vehicles at $385 per vehicle, and for non-emergency medical and charter vehicles at $490 per vehicle. On November 24th of 2025, For Hire Vehicle Administration sent an email to all permit holders on file with several documents explaining the 2020 fee schedule, our budget and fee developing process, and other forms that are needed for the renewal process, such as the annual statement, the mechanical vehicle inspection form, and additional forms for those vehicles that are wheelchair accessible, which they could waive their annual renewal fee if they chose to, and I'm glad to report that everybody did. Additionally, on New Year's Day, or no, New Year's Eve, I should say, we sent a mass text message. For Hire Vehicle Administration sent a mass text message to the cell phones of all permit holders on file, reminding them to check their main and spam folders for emails that were sent by For Hire Vehicle Administrations on the steps on how to complete the renewal process. So I'll talk a little bit more of that. That's a new method of communication, but that's the outreach that we performed on those dates to remind permit holders of the reg fee payment. Also, beginning New Year's, around January 1st of 2026, For Hire Vehicle Administration send the permit renewal invoices via email for a total of 1,681 permits, out of which 877 were taxicabs, 6 were jitneys, 40 low-speed vehicles, 655 non-emergency, and 103 charter vehicles. 5 permit holders submitted wheelchair accessible vehicle regulatory fee waivers for a total of 7 wheelchair accessible vehicle taxicab permits, which were the same number that we had for the previous calendar year. So that's good news. All of the previous vehicles remained in service for 2026 by renewing their permit. We still have time to submit and collect regulatory fees without incurring into a late fee. And permit holders may do so by mailing their payment to our address, our main address, or by dropping off their payment at our lobby. Or we're currently collecting until March 2nd, until Monday, at the San Diego Airport holding lot. And I again thank the airport and Michael for allowing us to use the airport's holding lot. Very convenient for the drivers. It's a quick process. We're still collecting the payments in the form, in the required permit renewal forms at the holding lot. And also for this Saturday, we're collecting for both taxis and NEMs at that location, 1695 Main Street, with the intersection of 6B. I encourage everybody or anybody that still wants to submit them on Saturday to Google this address. And that'll be the last Saturday where we would be collecting those forms, payments, and annual statements. And I should point out that our inspectors were there since the beginning on January, but tomorrow will be the last Saturday we'll be there. Again, the deadline to pay the annual regulatory fee is next Monday by the close of business day. And to avoid a $65 late payment fee, the payments must be received For Hire Vehicle Administration by March by close of business day. That includes mail payments or drop-off payments. In the event that a permit holder is not able to meet that deadline, they may still renew their permit until March 3rd by the close of business day, but they would have to pay the original permit renewal amount and an additional $65 late payment fee. We currently do not accept cash or credits or credit cards, but we continue to accept personal or cashier checks in money orders. That concludes the payment update, Chair. I'm open for any questions, comments.
Thank you so much. Any public comment on this item?
We have no public comments, Chair.
Any feedback from committee members?
How are we doing on the percentage of people who paid? Do you know?
As a very good question, Peter. As usual, most of our permit holders are choose to wait until the last couple of days before the deadline. So I was reporting to upper management today that we did receive an influx of payments from in the last week. So I would assess that we're at 80% approximately of all the payments. So that's good news. Not counting on the ones that have inquired on the late payment period. So I would say between 75, 80%.
So we'll send out a WhatsApp notice this weekend to folks we are in contact with to encourage them to avoid the late fee. Thank you.
On that note, I would report that we did send a mass text message earlier today before the meeting to remind permit holders, and with great results with those reminders. Our office did get a lot of phone calls to follow up, so we shall see. And then after April 3rd, then we should have the final number of permits that renewed.
Thank you so much. All right, seeing no additional questions on this item, if you'd like to, we can move to item 7. And if you'd like to provide our operations update, Lenny, actually, if you want to go ahead and kind of combine, just so we can be as efficient as possible, let folks get out and enjoy the Friday sunshine, or continue on with their work days. If you want to combine 7 and 8, we can go ahead and proceed.
Certainly, Chair. Thank you. Just to remind the committee, as the Chair indicated, this agenda will be posted in our website, and you can go through it at your own time and discretion. I will go through and summarize the content of this item. Reminding always that email is the primary communication method for hire vehicle administration. Also reminding the permit holders to let us know whenever they change their address, their phone number, or email information. If you want to drop to the office, we'd love to see you in person. However, we do ask that you make an appointment, and if you give us a call, to give us at least 24 hours to return your message by the next business day. You can see our staff information and our staff people on any questions you may have. It's available online. This is a current permit count that we have. We are gaining many taxicab permits. As you can see, we're almost at 900 taxicabs. Unfortunately, we do have 10% of the overall permits that are surrendered and 15% of the taxicab permits that are surrendered, meaning that they do have an active permit, but they choose not to be operating. And 15% is the highest percentage that we've had in the last 2 years. Also, we have our field inspection statistics on the cities that we have regulatory agreements with, and the contacts per vehicle. The majority of our contacts during this period were done through NEM charters, and almost a similar number with taxi cabs and the respective percentage. The enforcement statistics, our focus is to educate the industry whenever there is an issue instead of having punitive action. However, this slide, Chair, I would like to just point out an increase on the customer feedback cases, where in comparison to the previous trimester, for October and December, we saw an increase in overcharge cases and complaints, including drivers not activating the meter or charging the passenger more money that the meter would display. And this causes a very adverse, a negative experience with the drivers. And I can attest to that, having receiving those emails, reading those emails or those phone messages with these passengers saying that they would rather not use a taxi cab anymore. So we really want to strive on focusing on that. And we also believe technology and soft meters may play a role on this. So important for the industry, for themselves to have a united front with best customer service and paying attention to the overcharge issues that I'm happy to discuss at an individual basis on a future date. We do have acquired an online permit portal. So for next year, we're currently developing that portal with a contractor. And what this will allow is for applicants to complete and submit applications for new applications for additional permits, dispatch service changes, voluntary surrenders. Pretty much every administrative request that has to be done in person will be done online. It should be really convenient for current and new applicants. And most importantly, to submit payments with credit cards and debit cards, which is an issue that has been on the table for years, allowing the convenience to permit holders to do so, and also for staff to process those payments in a more efficient manner. Additionally, this solution would allow for hire vehicle administration to complete supplemental inspections, provide payment receipts, and other features that we are exploring that would benefit the for hire vehicle industry. The target launch for this online permitting solution is late 2026, with the hopes that it will be up and running by 2027, at which point we will only accept electronic payments. So we will communicate with the industry between now and 2027. That way, every permit holder can prepare to make any payments, renewals, or any other payment that's listed on the fee schedule with a credit card or a debit card. We will be having outreach for that purpose. Also, as I mentioned, phone, text, messages, communication. We constantly explore for better ways to communicate with our applicants, right? And we have many of them, as you can see, and it is a daunting task. However, aside of email communications, we adopted this to great success. We sent already a couple of mass text messages to the permit holders who have their cell phone on file. Permit holders may opt out of this. We do not recommend it. That way, if they miss their email, then they can have a backup by receiving a text message. There's no need to reply to those messages, but email still remains the primary method of communication. Also, wildcatting enforcement efforts. Terry wanted a presentation and update for this committee for every meeting, and we are in contact with the DA to discuss with the San Diego District Attorney, discussing the possibility of extending the wildcatting public safety awareness for 2026. MTS is working with the District Attorney and other agency stakeholders to evaluate the PSA content and locations to display. And we are recommending that that public safety awareness campaign is displayed in the Otay Mesa area, where wildcatting activity has become more prevalent. Finally, San Diego Police and the California Public Utilities Commission continue to conduct sting operations against wildcatting, and they have a scheduled first sting operation for 2026 in the very near future. And finally, our driver incentive program. We are currently collecting and receiving passenger compliments from dispatch services for NEMT charter companies to reward any driver that excels in customer service, courtesy, professionalism, and compliance with the regulations. We covered this item last year in one of the TAC meetings. There will be 2 driver recipients, one from the Taxicab, jitney, and low-speed vehicle category, and one from the non-emergency medical and charter category. Our CEO has authorized various awards, including a plaque, a $100 gift card, wash tickets. The sheriff has agreed to waive their driver ID renewal fee, and also a driver recognition decal that they can affix to their vehicle. We will, CEO or their designee will evaluate the recommendations for the winner of each category, and for hire vehicle administration will notify the award winners via email before the July 2021 TAC meeting, where they will be here to be presented with those awards. And if they do, and as a final perk, if that driver agrees to have their professional profile, MTS will showcase it in our website. We also sent out on February 9th an administrative regulation prohibiting first-party integration for TNC and electronically booked trips. The purpose for that was for all computerized dispatch systems that are utilized, but dispatch services must utilize third-party integration for those TNC trips, with the purpose of establishing regulatory standards for the integration of the TNC trips or other electronically booked trips, and to clarify that all those trips are considered taxicab trips. The deadline for the services, for the dispatch services to adopt this third-party integration was 2023, and I'm glad to report that all dispatch services have either adopted third-party integration or are very near to adopt third-party integration. That was the purpose of that administrative regulation. And finally, Chair, the year comparison on taxicabs trips compared to TNC trips out of the San Diego Airport, and the below a chart shows a percentage of the overall trips, with TNCs consistently having over 90% of the overall trips out of the airport. So this is probably the most important chart for the committee to consider, and it's available on our website for further analysis. And as you asked, Chair, we're going to combine the last item for the next topics for our next meeting. We're requesting feedback on what topics to address. We're currently proposing ordinance number 11 revisions, sustainable measures for the taxicab industry, again with smart meters and how they can play a role with providing implementation of rates or flat rates for that matter, and the for hire vehicle administration update that I just presented. And Chair, that concludes all the presentable items for this agenda. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so much, Lenny. Any public comment on items 7 or 8?
We do, Tony Weisel, if you can please unmute yourself. Tony, are you able to unmute yourself? Tony, can you
All right.
press?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. I didn't get to speak on item number 2, but something of interest and of importance. Supposedly, we're still negotiating with the airport. We haven't had the opportunity to vent it to the whole industry, but we're totally opposed to this double, I'm going to call it tax on the industry on trip fees. They made it seem like this is a foregone conclusion, and we're not totally in agreement on that for various factors, which there's not a lot of time to cover all the items. So I'll leave it at that this is an ongoing situation, that we're still going to go see the new chairman at the airport, that we're totally opposed to on this item, and we're going to need the industry support. This is something triggered by Uber, and we're not in agreement with it. So I thank you for this opportunity, and to be continued. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.
That concludes public comments, Chair.
All right, thank you so much. I don't see any additional committee member questions or comments. Thank you, Lenny, as always, for all your work. Samantha, for your work in preparing for these meetings. Thank you to all the members who were able to make it today. We will see you all at our next meeting. Thank you, everyone.